Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt, cried the obese girl. Then the mountain man did this.
I know you're
The
scared, but
autumn
look at me.
wind
We're
cut
together now.
across the Wyoming territory like a blade,
Maybe it will be
carrying
different
the
this
scent
time.
of snow and the promise of a
I won't
harsh
let
winter
anything
to
happen
come.
to you.
Bronco Sullivan was
promise.
checking his trap lines in the foothills near his isolated ranch when he heard the sounds that made his blood run cold. Men's laughter, cruel and ugly, accompanied by a woman's cries of pain. Bronco crested the ridge and saw them in the valley below. 4 men on horseback surrounding someone on the ground. As he got closer, he could see their victim was a young woman, maybe 19 or 20 years old, heavily pregnant and substantially overweight. She was curled on her side in the dirt, her arms wrapped protectively around her swollen belly, while the men took turns kicking at her with their boots. "Please," the woman sobbed, her voice carrying clearly in the thin mountain air. "Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt. The baby. Please don't hurt my baby." One of the men, a lean, cruel-faced individual Bronco recognized as Jake Morrison, one of cattle baron Samuel Blackjack Hayes's most vicious enforcers, laughed and aimed another kick at the woman's ribs. "Should have thought about your baby before you stole from Mr. Hayes," Morrison sneered. "He wants his property back, Daisy, and he wants you to pay for betraying him." "I didn't steal anything," Daisy cried out. I couldn't stay and watch what he was doing. It was wrong." "Wrong or right ain't your decision to make," Morrison said, pulling back his boot for another kick. "You're just a fat clerk who forgot her place." That's when Bronco Sullivan made his presence known, standing 6'8", with a build that looked carved from granite, massive shoulders, arms like oak trees, and the kind of powerfully defined chest and abdominal muscles that marked him as a man in peak physical condition. Bronco was an intimidating presence even by frontier standards. At 35, he'd spent the last 8 years living alone on his mountain ranch, but his time as a cavalry officer during the Indian Wars had left him with skills that never completely faded. 4 against 1, Bronco called out, his deep voice echoing off the rocks. "And the one is a pregnant woman. Real brave of you boys." The 4 men spun toward him, hands moving toward their guns, but Bronco was already moving. He'd fought enough battles to know that hesitation got you killed. His rifle spoke once, and Morrison dropped from his saddle with a scream, clutching his shoulder where Bronco's bullet had shattered bone. The other 3 went for their weapons, but Bronco was already among them, using his horse's momentum to barrel into the nearest rider, sending the man tumbling to the ground. A second man got his gun clear, but Bronco's massive fist connected with his jaw before he could aim, and the sound of breaking bone echoed across the valley. The 4th man, seeing half his companions down and facing a mountain of fury in human form, decided discretion was the better part of valor. He spurred his horse and fled, leaving his partners behind. Bronco quickly disarmed the 2 men still conscious, then turned his attention to the woman they'd been attacking. Daisy was still curled on her side, breathing hard, her face pale with pain and fear. Blood trickled from a cut on her lip, and Bronco could see bruises already forming on her face and arms. "Ma'am," he said gently, kneeling beside her, "my name's Bronco Sullivan. These men are gone now. You're safe. Can you tell me how badly you're hurt?" Daisy looked up at him with brown eyes wide with terror and confusion. At nearly 350 pounds, she was used to being mocked and dismissed, not rescued by imposing strangers. Her dark hair was tangled with dirt and leaves, and her simple dress was torn and stained. "The baby," she whispered, one hand pressed to her swollen belly. I think the baby's all right, but they've been chasing me for 3 days. I'm so tired, and I'm scared they'll find me again." "They won't," Bronco said with quiet conviction. "Not while you're under my protection. Can you ride? My ranch is about 5 miles from here. You need medical attention and a safe place to rest." "You don't understand," Daisy said, tears streaming down her round cheeks. "They work for Samuel Hayes, Blackjack Hayes. He's one of the most powerful men in the territory. If you help me, he'll come after you too. He'll destroy everything you have." Bronco's expression hardened. He knew Blackjack Hayes by reputation, a cattle baron who'd built his empire through intimidation, violence, and questionable business practices. Hayes controlled vast stretches of grazing land and had enough men on his payroll to enforce his will across multiple counties. "Let me worry about Hayes," Bronco said. "Right now, you need help. Will you come with me?" Daisy nodded, though she still looked terrified. Bronco helped her to her feet, his strength making her substantial weight manageable, and got her onto his horse. The ride to his ranch was slow and careful, with Bronco walking alongside to make sure Daisy didn't fall. His ranch house was a substantial log structure he'd built himself, nestled in a protected valley with good water and natural defenses. Inside, it was comfortable, but clearly the home of a man living alone, functional rather than welcoming. "The bedroom is through that door," Bronco said, helping Daisy inside. "It's got a good bed and a fireplace. You rest while I tend to those men I left in the valley. Then we'll talk about what's got Hayes so worked up that he's sending men to beat pregnant women." When Bronco returned from securing Morrison and his partner, the injured men were tied up and deposited at the nearest sheriff's office with a detailed account of their crimes. He found Daisy sitting by the fire, clutching a worn leather Bible to her chest like a shield. "That Bible seems pretty important to you," Bronco observed, settling into the chair across from her. Daisy's hand tightened on the book. "It was my mother's. She died when I was 12, and it's all I have left of her." "And Hayes is after you because—" Daisy was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke. "I worked as a clerk for Mr. Hayes for 2 years, kept his books, handled correspondence, managed his business records. I thought I was just helping run a cattle operation. But then I found out what he was really doing." She looked at Bronco directly for the first time. "He's been forging documents to steal water rights from homesteaders. He'd wait for families to establish claims, get their land producing, then use fake territorial documents to claim their water sources. Without water, the homesteaders would have to abandon their land, and Hayes would buy it for pennies on the dollar." Bronco felt cold anger settle in his stomach. Water rights were life and death on the frontier. A man who would steal another family's water was stealing their future, their children's inheritance, their very survival. "You have proof of this?" he asked. Daisy nodded, her grip on the Bible tightening further. "Hayes kept a secret ledger, detailed records of every forged document, every stolen claim, every family he'd destroyed. He thought I didn't know about it, but I found it, and when I realized what it meant, I couldn't stay. I couldn't be part of destroying innocent families. So, you took the ledger and ran. I took the ledger and tried to get to the territorial capital, to turn it over to the authorities. But Hayes discovered it was missing before I could get there. He's had men hunting me ever since. Daisy's voice broke. I'm 8 months pregnant, Mr. Sullivan. I can't keep running much longer, and if he catches me— He won't catch you, Bronco said with absolute conviction. You're staying here until that baby is born, and you're strong enough to travel safely. Then we'll figure out how to get that evidence to people who can use it. But Hayes will come here, Daisy protested. When those men don't report back, he'll know someone helped me. He'll track me here, and he'll destroy your ranch, maybe kill you. I can't let that happen to someone who's been kind to me. Bronco was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. 8 years ago, I had a wife, he finally said. Her name was Margaret. She was heavy-set like you, and people sometimes made cruel comments about her size. But she was the kindest, strongest woman I ever knew. When the cholera outbreak hit the territory, she insisted on helping nurse the sick, even though I begged her not to risk it. His voice grew rough with old pain. She caught the sickness and died within 3 days. I blamed myself for not stopping her, for not protecting her. I've been living alone up here ever since, telling myself I was better off without the responsibility of caring for someone else. He looked at Daisy directly. But when I saw those men kicking you, saw you trying to protect your baby despite everything they were doing to you, I realized I'd been wrong. Sometimes protecting someone else is exactly what a man needs to do to find his own redemption. You're staying, Daisy. That's final. Over the following weeks, as autumn turned to winter and Daisy's pregnancy progressed, she and Bronco developed an unlikely friendship. He proved to be surprisingly gentle and patient, helping her with household tasks as her mobility decreased, teaching her to shoot his rifle in case she needed to defend herself, never once commenting on her size or making her feel like a burden. Daisy, in turn, brought warmth and purpose back to Bronco's isolated existence. She was intelligent and well-educated, and in the evenings they would sit by the fire and talk about books, about the world beyond the mountains, about their hopes for a better future. She also proved to be an excellent cook, transforming Bronco's simple meals into something approaching cuisine. I don't understand why you're being so kind to me, Daisy said one evening as they sat by the fire. I'm not pretty, I'm not thin, and I'm carrying another man's child. Most men wouldn't want the burden of— Stop, Bronco interrupted gently. You're not a burden. You're a brave woman who risked everything to do what was right. You're intelligent, kind, and stronger than you realize. Your size doesn't define your worth any more than Margaret's did. And as for the baby, any child lucky enough to have you as a mother is blessed, regardless of who the father is. Their peaceful existence was interrupted in early December when Hayes's men found the ranch. Bronco spotted the dust cloud of approaching riders from his lookout point and immediately knew they were in trouble. 15 men, all armed, all clearly intent on violence. They've found us, he told Daisy, who was now just days away from giving birth. I need to get you somewhere safe. There was a hidden canyon about 2 miles from the ranch house, accessible only through a narrow passage that could be defended by one man against many. Bronco had discovered it years ago and used it as an emergency shelter. He helped Daisy make the difficult journey to the canyon, carrying supplies for several days. Stay here no matter what you hear, he told her. If I don't come back in 3 days, follow the canyon east until you reach the Morrison Ranch. They're good people. They'll help you get to safety." "Don't do this," Daisy pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "There are too many of them. They'll kill you." "Maybe," Bronco admitted, "but I'm not letting them take you, and I'm not letting Hayes get away with what he's done to those homesteader families. That ledger you're carrying, it's the only chance those people have for justice." He kissed her forehead gently. "Take care of yourself, Daisy, and take care of that baby. The world needs more people like you, people willing to stand up for what's right, even when it costs them everything." Bronco returned to his ranch to find Hayes and his men already there, systematically searching every building. Samuel "Blackjack" Hayes was a thin, elegant man in his 50s, dressed in expensive clothes and carrying himself with the arrogance of someone accustomed to having his will be law. "Mr. Sullivan," Hayes called out as Bronco approached, "I believe you have something that belongs to me. A young woman named Daisy, along with some papers she stole from my office. I'm here to reclaim my property." "Daisy isn't property," Bronco said coldly, "and she's not here. You're trespassing on my land, Hayes. Take your men and leave." Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I don't think you understand the situation. I have 15 men with me. You're alone, and I know the woman is here somewhere. My men tracked her to this valley. So I'll ask one more time. Where is she?" "Go to hell," Bronco said. What followed was one of the most one-sided battles in territorial history. Bronco was a formidable fighter, but 15 against 1 were impossible odds. He managed to drop 3 men before they overwhelmed him through sheer numbers. They beat him savagely, broke several ribs, and left him for dead in the ashes of his burned ranch house. Bronco might have died there if not for Carlos Mendoza, a vaquero passing through, who spotted the smoke from the burned buildings and investigated. Carlos found Bronco barely alive and nursed him back to health over several weeks, asking no questions about what had happened or why. When Bronco was finally strong enough to travel, his first thought was of Daisy. He made his way back to the hidden canyon, fearing what he might find after so much time had passed. Instead, he found a miracle. Daisy was alive and well, and cradled in her arms was a healthy baby girl with dark hair and brown eyes like her mother's. "Hope," Daisy said, holding up the infant. "I named her Hope because even in the darkest times she gave me something to hope for." "Hayes?" Bronco asked. "Hasn't been back. I think he assumed you were dead and I'd died of exposure or childbirth. The canyon's been safe." Daisy looked at Bronco's still healing injuries with concern. "What happened to you?" Bronco told her about the battle, about Carlos's rescue, about the weeks of recovery. When he finished, Daisy was crying. "This is my fault," she said. "You nearly died because of me, because of that ledger." "No," Bronco interrupted. "I nearly died because Hayes is a bastard who destroys anyone who opposes him. But I survived. And now we're going to make sure that ledger gets to the territorial authorities. Hayes is going to pay for what he's done. To those homesteader families, to you, to me, to everyone he's hurt over the years." The journey to the territorial capital took 2 weeks, traveling carefully with a newborn baby and Bronco still recovering from his injuries. But when they arrived, the impact of Daisy's evidence was immediate and devastating for Hayes's empire. The secret ledger contained detailed records of dozens of fraudulent transactions, forged documents, and stolen water rights. Armed with this evidence, territorial authorities moved quickly to arrest Hayes and his top lieutenants. The stolen lands were returned to their rightful owners, and Hayes's cattle empire crumbled almost overnight. "Justice," the territorial governor said, when he thanked Daisy for her courage in preserving the evidence. "Real justice for families who thought they'd never see it. You're a hero, Mrs. I'm sorry. What should I call you?" "Mrs. Sullivan," Daisy said, looking at Bronco with love and gratitude. "My name is Daisy Sullivan." They had married quietly the day before, with Hope serving as the world's youngest wedding witness. It wasn't a marriage born of desperation or convenience, but of genuine love that had grown from shared hardship and mutual respect. Returning to what remained of Bronco's ranch, they began the work of rebuilding, not just the burned buildings, but their lives together. With the reward money the territory had paid for bringing down Hayes, they were able to construct a new ranch house, larger and more comfortable than the original. Years later, as they sat on their porch, watching Hope play with her two younger siblings in the yard, Daisy reflected on the journey that had brought them to this peaceful life. "Do you remember what I said that day when those men were kicking me?" Daisy asked. "Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt. I was begging them to show mercy to someone who was already broken." "You were never broken," Bronco said, pulling her close. "Hurt, yes. Scared, yes. But not broken. It takes incredible strength to do what you did, to risk everything to expose Hayes's crimes, to protect that evidence even when it put you in danger, to bring hope into the world under such difficult circumstances. You were the strongest person I'd ever met, even when you felt weakest." "You showed me what real strength looks like," Daisy said. "When you fought those men to protect me, when you took me to your home and treated me with dignity, when you faced down Hayes even though it nearly killed you, that's when I learned that true strength isn't about size or power. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it costs you everything." As the sun set over their rebuilt ranch and their children's laughter filled the evening air, Bronco and Daisy held each other and counted their blessings. What had started with violence and cruelty had become a love story that proved redemption was possible, that justice could prevail, and that the most beautiful families were often built by people who had found each other in their darkest moments and chosen to build something better together. The obese girl who had begged not to be kicked had become a hero who brought down a corrupt empire. The lonely rancher who had thought he was better off alone had found the family he'd never dared to hope for. And baby Hope, born in a hidden canyon during their flight from danger, grew up knowing she was the product of courage, justice, and a love that had been forged in the crucible of doing what was right no matter the cost.